Looking to take your financial knowledge to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to Ask Ralph, offering accounting, technical, and financial advice. Whether you're looking to save taxes or improve your business, he's got you covered. Here's your host of Ask Ralph, Ralph Eastop Jr.
Welcome back to the Ask Ralph Show. I'm going to venture into an area that I think I may get myself in trouble, but it's certainly not my intention. I saw an article in the News Journal this Sunday. It was reprinted from USA Today by an author named Nadia Yancey Bragg. And the title of this article is The Top 10 Financial Mistakes Women Should Avoid. So I'm going to disclose to you first that I'm not a woman, so I am not at all creating any expectation as to saying that I have a better answer or anything like that. But I read this article and I think it's very true. And a lot of these things pertain to both men and women. But here are the top 10 financial mistakes women need to avoid. Now, this was by a financial expert by the name of Laureen Gilbert, who's a member of the executive board of the National Association of Women Business Owners. So let's jump right into this. And, people are welcome to disagree, but I really think some of the things she mentions here really hit home. And the first one is waiting until marriage to buy a home. And I do hear this sometimes in my practice where I have, single women clients who will make the statement, well, I'm going to wait till I get married to buy a home. Now, Gilbert recommends, saving and buying a property while you're still single. So if you've got the means to do it, by all means, get involved in buying a home. Second thing is spending too much on personal care. One of the things she mentions here is establishing clear boundaries between needs and wants and monitoring your spending on discretionary items such as clothes and cosmetics. Now, I happen to have a wife that doesn't do a lot of this, and but this is something you need to take a look at. And this goes along the whole line of having a budget, regardless if you're a man or a woman. Making sure that you're meeting your budget expectations and not going over and above that. I've seen shows on television where people have got themselves overextended because of clothing and things like that. So really something that kind of makes sense to me. The next one is saving too much cash versus investing. And this person, Gilbert, says, while it's a good idea to have a safety net in case of emergencies, investing some savings in a well-diversified stock portfolio can be beneficial in the long term and help beat inflation. And I have to agree with that. One of the things that people really need to do, whether you're a man or a woman, is get involved early with your investment portfolio, whether that's with your 401k at work or setting up some sort of IRA or even an after-tax investment portfolio. You should never wait, for that. It's a time to jump in that and get to that right away. Next one is not being comfortable with short-term market volatility. This person, Gilbert, says a long-term benefit of being in the market outweighs short-term volatility. Again, what she states here is that women in general tend to be more conservative than their male counterparts. Part of it may be needing education. Part of it is that women tend to like the idea of being slow and steady. And I think that's very true. When I look at my practice, a lot of times the woman will be the one that comes in to get their taxes done. So it's clear to me in a lot of cases, women are in charge of the home finances. And with that comes, a certain amount of conservatism. I definitely agree with that. But just like any other person, you've got to look at the market in terms of the long term. And short-term volatility is going to always be there. Right now, and I don't give financial advice, but we are definitely in an interesting market where there's a lot of, market fluctuation. But, the investment houses will tell you, hold out for the long term and things will work themselves out. Next thing they mention here is not saving enough for retirement. Women are more likely to save for retirement than men, but they have a slew of factors preventing them from actually saving. They typically work less, earn less, and live longer than men. So what are they saying here? Now, I'm not going to get into social commentary, but it goes without saying that, the sooner you start saving, the better off you're going to be. And, when they make the statement here that, women tend to live longer than men, what that means is that the retirement savings needed by women is most times greater than that of men because, they've got a plan for longevity. The life expectation is longer for women. So you've got to make sure you're putting that aside. This person, this Laureen Gilbert recommends, saving at least 15% of your income. Now, you might not be able to do that right away, but it's something to shoot for. When I meet with clients, I'll say to them, how much are you putting into your 401k? I'll take a look at their W-2 and say, okay, well, you're only putting about 2 or 3%. Well, that's all my company matches. Well, the unfortunate part of it is at 3% savings, you're not going to have enough to retire. And what we found, and I agree with Gilbert here, is that it's about 15% of your income. And like I've said in other broadcasts, it is not uncommon for my clients to have more income in retirement than they had when they were working. Another thing they mention here, starting a business without sufficient financial planning. Gilbert advises female entrepreneurs to have a conservative cash flow analysis. And again, I don't really think this is just a woman thing. This is a thing for business owners in general. What I have seen in practice is the biggest obstacle for businesses to succeed is not having a very strong a financial plan that goes along with their business. People just assume that things are going to be fantastic, but it doesn't always work out that way. Another thing that they mention here is not having a consistent work history to maximize Social Security. Gilbert says women should be tracking their Social Security benefits because they need to build at least 10 years or 40 quarters in Social Security. Again, this has to do with making sure that you're, quote, vested in Social Security. And I ask, a lot of times my clients this question, have you worked 40 quarters? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? In our society, it's not uncommon for women to stay home with their children. Well, that's time that they're out of the workforce. So they need to make sure that you've got those 40 quarters vested in Social Security so that when you do go to retire, you at least have the benefit of the Social Security. And what that means is that, basically to collect Social Security benefits, and I am by no means a Social Security expert, you need to make sure you've worked at least 40 quarters and paid into that. So even if you find yourself short on that, go get a job short term just to make sure you've vested in Social Security. Next thing is relying too heavily on a spouse to provide for your future. Gilbert encourages women to be financially independent and maintain their own assets. And I can't agree more. I think that in a marriage, and the marriages that I've seen that have been the most successful are when two people come together and they have their own financial independence. And that doesn't mean that they can't share their resources. And I'm a conservative, old-fashioned kind of guy that I believe in traditional family. But that being said, I also believe that, the stronger that each person brings, the more strength that person brings to the marriage, the better off they can be. Another thing here, and this is kind of not a great thing to talk about, but waiting too long to change your lifestyle after divorce. If someone knows they're going through a divorce, they need to talk to a financial advisor to run some cash flow analysis right away. And that's important because, when you go through a divorce, you're going to have an impact on this. I don't know how many times I've seen, clients come in who have been through a divorce and they really have a financial situation that's difficult to manage, both men and women. It really is a change in the way things are done. And the final thing they mention here is not leveraging relationships to advance your personal wealth. Women often are less confident than women are less confident they'll be to make financial decisions, and many women don't work with financial advisors. Now, this is according to a Prudential study from 2013. And Gilbert recommends using every single resource at your disposal to discover new wealth building strategies. And again, I think this goes for both men and women. Invest in yourself. Learn what you can about making sure you're making the best financial decisions, whether you're a man or a woman. Make sure you're doing these things that we talked about. And I hope this was really helpful for everyone.
You've been listening to Ask Ralph, brought to you by Saggio Accounting Plus. Please subscribe to and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. Our podcast is produced by Carolyn Peters. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Ask Ralph Media. You can also hear me each week on 1450 WILM and on 1410 WDOV in Delaware and on the iHeartRadio app. Submit your questions or ideas for future shows by sending an email to AskRalph@AskRalph.com.
The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.